Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, maybe a little stressed? A bit of design structure might be just what you need. Last week, I talked a little bit about how I was in the state of overwhelm, stressed, on the verge of a burnout or burning out, and three things that really help me when I'm at this level of anxiety and all the ideas are swirling in my head were one, play, two, a little structure, and three, getting it out there, putting it onto a list. So today I want to talk about how having a structured container can help you overcome the stuckness, the overwhelm, the stress, and avoid getting yourself into a burnout state, which we don't want to have to climb ourselves out of. We just want to be able to keep going, but at a pace where we're not going to burn out, where we're going to continue to thrive and do all the things that we want to do. And the structure I want to talk about today is design thinking. Design thinking is a human centered problem solving framework. What I mean by that is it's a framework where the human, the user, is at the center. So if you are a STEM professional, someone in the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics, that world, you probably are using design thinking to some extent because you're always thinking about your customer. You're thinking about your user. You're thinking about who you are designing and implementing these strategies, these applications, this research. Who is going to benefit? That's the heart of design thinking, thinking about the user and being able to put yourself in their shoes and really figure out what that user needs. But what if I told you that design thinking is the ultimate structure for us being our own user? I'm gonna move this down just a little bit, the microphone. All right. Yes, I have been focusing many years now on thinking about how to apply design thinking to ourselves as the subject matter, as the human into the center of our design process. So, what would that look like? Well, let's go through the design thinking process framework itself. It's not necessarily a linear path that one has to take, but to teach it to you, I'm going to walk us through this linear path or cycle. There are 5 to 6 stages of the design thinking process. Stage one is empathize. That's where you empathize with your user. You figure out what their needs are. You observe them in their space. You really put yourself in their shoes. Step two is define. What's the question you're really trying to solve? What's the problem? What is the real problem? Sometimes the user will come to you and tell you that they have a specific problem, like, I don't know what to choose as my outfit in the morning. But really, the problem is not about that. The problem is, oh, I can't choose my outfit in the morning because I'm not getting enough sleep at night. So sometimes the user will come to you with a specific problem, but that is not really the problem you want to solve. And that all gets uncovered in the define stage. Ideate is the fun part. Once you have a clearly defined problem, then you can brainstorm all the possibilities. And then comes the fun part, prototyping. I really do need to figure out where to put this mic because I like to talk with my hands and the mic is right in my face. So perhaps that is why people have their mics above them. Maybe I'll try that adjustment in a future video, but for now, prototype. So prototyping is the fun part. That's where you get to play, construct, test out your ideas, see if they're going to work, build them, build something to represent your solution. And then you go to the next phase, which is to test it out. And you take your prototype and put that out in the world and test it with your users, see how they respond, get their feedback so that you can go back and kind of do that little prototyping cycle again where you fix some things, you test it with the user, you bring it back, you tweak, and you do that cycle a few times. And then sometimes when you do this process, you share. But the big part of this process, I think, that's really important is the collaborative piece, the piece where you are talking to your user or talking to other people on your team or just collaborating with others who might be doing something very similar. So if you are in a STEM field, this might look like the scientific method or the engineering design cycle. If you are a designer out in the world, it might look like a design process that you bring to your users. But a lot of the time, we don't bring this process and use it for ourselves. And this is where we are today, talking about getting unstuck, putting in structure to overcome the stress and the overwhelm. Design thinking is one of those structures, one that I love dearly and believe and know it works for a lot of different people. I brought it into the world in a lot of contexts through workshops, through courses that I have run, um, working with small teams of people, working with individuals. This methodology works for combating, overcoming the burnout, um, and moving, being in action. That is the best part about this process, is that it doesn't take much to move you forward. And that's all you need is that one small step, that one small action to get you out of the stuckness, to get you out of the overwhelm, to get you out of the stress. That's all you need. All right. So now that you know the design thinking process, that's great. You can do that with a user in the context of like developing some application or doing some research to benefit others out in the world. But how do you bring it for yourself? Well, that's easy. It's a human-centered process. You, my friend, are the human in the process when you use it for yourself. You can do all these steps with yourself in mind. So let's go back to the beginning. Step 1, empathize. Feeling stuck? Empathize with yourself. Reflect on where you're at. What are your issues? What are your challenges? What are your pain points, your fears? What is holding you back? What is clogging up your head? Get it all out. Reflect. That's step 1. Empathize with yourself. Step 2 is probably the most critical part of this process, and that is defining the problem. Without a clear problem statement or question, the rest of the cycle, you might as well not do. But you want to really get at the heart of the matter of what your problem is. So we might think our problem is that I am just feeling so stressed. How do I make myself become unstressed? But I bet you there's something deeper, something underlying, cutting that stress. So some simple ways to get more at the heart of the problem is to ask yourself why. And do that 5 different times. I'm feeling stressed. Why? Well, tax time is approaching and I haven't gotten that done. And that makes me feel a little on edge. Well, why? Well, because I left it to the last minute and I don't When I leave things to the last minute, they make me very stressed. Well, why are you leaving it to the last minute? I've left it to the last minute because it's the low priority on my list of many tasks that I want to do. All right, you get it? So maybe I started off with I was stressed, but the underlying is that I need some structures in place so that I am doing things that are low priority as they approach their nearing destination goal before it's the last minute. You get it? So once you have that clearly defined problem, then you can move on to ideating, brainstorming, coming up with solutions. And in that stage, you want to come up with as many ideas as you can, go for wild ideas, and release all judgment on anything you come up with because you want to keep it all. Any of those ideas might be helpful. And if, as you prototyping things and trying things out and testing them, and they don't feel right or good to you, you can always go back to this ideate stage and look at your long list of brainstorms that you had and try something different. And then you'll prototype. So, what does a prototype look like for something that's like not a product, not out there for the users or consumers in the world? A prototype for yourself could look like, well, let me map out my journey. What is my journey going to look like if the solution is in play? I might do a mind map of the solution or the idea of what I have. I might do a little storyboard to inspire me. I might build a small little prototype of one aspect of the experience that I'm trying to create for myself, or the structure, or the path, or the goal. So the prototype is just a little test. It doesn't have to be the entire solution. You can take one small aspect of this idea of, I need to make sure that I am moving towards impeding goals that have a hard time limit earlier so that I'm not as anxious when those things roll up. And so a prototype I could do is, well, what might that look like on my Kanban board? Another structured thing that I utilize to help me feel less anxious and be in action, right? So I could prototype some like signal on the task that says the tasks in red really need to be moved over into the progress category because they are coming up fast and furious. I could test it out, try it out for a few weeks. If it works, great, I can adopt it. If not, I can come back and try something different. That is the beauty of this process. But what I hope you are getting is that every one of these steps is keeping me in action. It's moving me. It's taking that small step. And that is what is going to keep me out of the stuck, overwhelmed, stressful state. The tiredness, the exhaustion, the fatigue of having so many things that I'm trying to do at once that wears you out, which leads to that burnout state. And then along the way, I am working in conjunction with my team. Do you have a team? Do you have a team of supporters, collaborators, your board of directors, your cheerleaders, the people that you can go to and bounce ideas off of? Everyone needs a team to do these processes with. You can't do it in a vacuum. I have a team of friends. I've got my partner. I have many people I reach out to. And along these different stages, I'll be like, what do you think? You know me. You know who I am. Does this sound like something I should be doing for myself? It's so great to get that feedback from other people in your community that surround you and love you to help you along the way. And that's something that I, Dr. Abigail, as the innovation doctor, provide to people. I build collaborative communities where people can work on projects, set goals, work towards them in a playful, creative manner to overcome burnout. And you can do that with me. Currently, the way I offer this is through my Facebook community, the Innovation Sanctuary, moving from burnout to creativity and joy. You can find your way there by going to heyinnovationdoctor.com/bliss. That will bring you there and you can join the community there. I also have a newsletter that you can sign up on. If you go to heyinnovationdoctor.com, you'll find a way to get onto the newsletter. And I will be bringing a lot more community oriented ways in which you can be in this enveloped in this problem solving, human centered problem solving process with a community to support you and hold you accountable. That's the other piece. Accountability. If you don't have that, sometimes this can just fall flat. So a little accountability goes a very long way. So let's recap. We've talked about design thinking as a design structure to help you overcome stuck, being overwhelmed, feeling stressed, having anxiety. When all those things are swirling around in your head and you don't know what to do next, you can fall back on design thinking. It's a step-by-step process, but you don't have to do every step in order. You can pick and choose. You can think about, reflect, ponder where you are now and choose the step that will feed you and your soul at that moment in time. The last thing I'll mention about the design thinking process is that it's unique to you. It's unique to your particular solution, experience, challenge that you want to overcome. That is the beauty. The human's at the center. The steps are: 1, empathize. 2, define the problem, figure out the scope. What is the question that you are trying to answer? 3, ideate. Come up with many, many, many ideas as a solution to your question. 4, prototype. Come up with some tangible thing that you can interact with, that you could share with others, that you can get feedback from your team. Test it out. Put the process in place for yourself. Try it out for a few weeks. See if it's working. If it's not, go back around. And the last thing I like to do is say share. Share what you learned with others. Everyone can benefit from hearing how others overcome their challenges, how others have become unstuck, how others are dealing with their stress, their anxiety, how others are sidestepping burnout. And that's it. That's the process. That's one way, one of the many ways that I like to add structure to combat burnout and get over the stuckness, the overwhelmness, and the stress. All right. At the end of every session, I like to pull a card from my many card decks. I have many card decks related to creativity and affirming who we are as creatives in this creative space. So today I'm going to pull from my Affirmators creativity deck, and let's see what we have. I'm going to try and avoid hitting the microphone. I'm going to do a little design thinking on where I can put that. And I am, as you can see, randomly pulling a card. Ooh, it says trust. Trust. Hopefully you can see that. All right, here we go. Progress, trust. I trust in myself, my process, and the timing of that infamously temperamental process. When ideas are galloping forth like wild horses, I definitely trust the process. When ideas are a tiny, pathetic trickle eking out one by one over a period of weeks, I vow to still trust the process because even when it's frustrating, process is just an empathetic grrr away from progress. Ah, that's so befitting. So, trust the process, trust yourself, try a little design thinking. Let me know how it works for you. If you want to learn more about it, contact me. I would love to share more about how this process works and how you can learn more. Until next time, trust the process.